Should instructors award stripes?
So should there be stripes in jiu-jitsu, or should there not be stripes in jiu-jitsu? Should there just be a belt
Yeah,
and that's it?
because like the old school guys, like I never got a stripe coming
I
up.
know. I was thinking about that.
It's like, what's a
Yeah,
stripe?
so you guys never did any stripes, right?
It must have been like a brown belt or black belt when they were like, okay, let's start doing stripes, man.
Really?
But
See,
before then, like nothing. It
so
wasn't.
I think that's really that's something really good for us to just talk about in general. It's like, okay, you have jiu-jitsu,
Mhm.
and then you have this belt system, and then you have within the belt system there's stripes. Some instructors do stripes, some instructors don't do stripes. And hold on one second, Alec. Hey Chris, will you take the squeak toy away from the dog? Sorry.
That's fine.
So but you edit, right? So you'll be able to
Yeah.
edit. Okay. All right. So some instructor, and I remember seeing that with you guys when I started, like when I mean, it's easy now. You can look people up and see what they're doing and that kind of thing. But I just remember like when I was hearing about all of you guys at Alliance, Ian, Chris, you, Jeff, John, and I was like, man, they never have stripes on their belts. And then I remember we did stripes. So I will tell you this relative to stripes, and I may have said this in our last interview, was Helson Gracie, who I was first with for the first few years of my jiu-jitsu. He was like, you get a stripe every 8 months if you don't compete, and you have to be performing well in class. Like that was what it was all about. You got to perform well in class. But then if you get tapped by somebody, it was like lesser ranked than you. And trust me, I remember this conversation. Like I will never forget this conversation because we were watching the World Championship, and a guy named Kendall Gu, who was really, really good, purple belt, and he was competing in the Worlds. And I remember Helson talking about rank then. And I remember him saying, like, if somebody gets tapped in competition, that everybody had to compete. That's what it was. Everybody had to compete.
Okay.
Like if you really want to climb the ranks, like purple belt and above, you had to compete. And then if you lost in training to one of your teammates that was like, a lower belt than you, then I mean, it was either going to be really, really slow, or you may even get demoted. I remember that conversation. I don't know. I mean, that's another reason why I do like the IBJJF is at least there's some consistency in belt rank. I mean, they added the white and red belt. That's kind of it's kind of weird when you start adding belts. And so like for you just asked about stripes, and so you came up in a system where you guys didn't have stripes at all. So and I came up at the time in a system that did have stripes. So I think that because of the infrequency of promotions in jiu-jitsu from belt to belt, and which I think it should be that way. I really do. I think that this should be a different martial art. That was what attracted me to jiu-jitsu when I realized that we had to put on a uniform and tie it with a belt. Like I didn't even know that was going to be jiu-jitsu. I thought it was no gi, even though that wasn't what we called it. We just called it jiu-jitsu. I showed up in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. I was kind of embarrassed when I had to put a uniform on and a belt. I was like, this is kind of cheesy. Is this like karate? So, but when I realized, and I did my own research on like belts and rank and just the history of jiu-jitsu in general, and I was trying to figure it out. And then I heard some old stories where there used to just be like a white belt and a navy blue belt. And then there was like a white belt, a navy blue belt, and a black belt. And then all of a sudden there was like a white belt, a blue, purple, brown, black. I don't know which one is true. I mean, no telling what I read, whether or not it is what it is. But I like the idea because of the infrequency in belt to belt promotions. I like the idea of stripes and keeping students motivated for sure.
And this kind of touches on my next question. What do the stripes represent, I guess, to you as being an instructor? Like when you give a stripe, what are you thinking about?
So because I do take a little longer than most in promoting students from belt to belt, I feel like I am seeing some progression in their jujitsu. I'm a little quick on the first two stripes, and then I take a little longer for stripe 3 and 4. And then, you know, I feel like my expectations are consistent, and they generally have been. I would say that most of my students, for example, stay at their belts longer than whatever the IBJJF says, which some people don't even care about. You know, they don't even care about that. But I think that for me is progression, and it's just like the belt, just progression and attitude. You
When
know
you
what I
say
mean?
progression, are you saying like technical wise, rolling wise?
Technique, yeah, and then being able to apply their tech as they develop their game, right? They're especially with like purple belt and above. What I like to see is, okay, technically speaking, somebody has they have an idea of every position, right? If we're talking about just like close guard, a form of open guard, side control, top bottom,
Mm,
passing the guard, back, mount, half guard. And then they have like, especially purple belt and above, and I know we're not talking about that, but they have a game. And I think that you start to develop a game at blue belt. So I just want to see some consistency with technique around the end of a white belt in order to be promoted to the next level, blue belt. And so the stripes for me is just is some technical progression, and then being able to apply um, their technique live.
okay.
Even if they have an idea what they're doing, but they're not successful with it. But if they have an idea what they're doing,
I mean, we can watch like I feel like students don't understand like the coach is watching you. Okay, we see what you're trying to do. Okay, maybe you didn't get it, but it was kind of close. Like, oh, let's try a good tip.
right?
But then like there's students, they don't use any technique, and you're like, why didn't I get promoted? And it's like, dude, you didn't use anything I showed you, or any technique. You just use muscle, and then
Right.
they get upset.
And relative to that, so and you and I had this conversation recently, and then we had you're aware I promoted a couple of guys. I
Mm-hmm.
promoted a blue belt last week, and I promoted a purple belt last week. And the purple belts and the blue belt, for sure the purple belt may end up watching this, and so he's gonna know who he is, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy, he's Tyler McLeese. He wrestled at West Point. He's
Okay.
wrestled nearly his whole life. Guy is tough. He's like 200 pounds.
Mm,
He's really tough. He's very, very athletic. So for Tyler, he can out wrestle anybody, and even like, like people that outrank him, he can do a good job playing top and keeping them on their back. But that's in his wheelhouse. That's not necessarily it's grappling, but it's not jujitsu in its pure form.
yeah.
So I've held him back quite some time because I wanted to see him develop um, a grappling game that was more jujitsu based and a little less wrestling based. I'm not saying that I'm trying to change his game or his pace or his style or anything. I just want to be able to see him do more jujitsu
Mm-hmm.
and not just run around somebody's legs and then
So
hold them down.
you mean like more guard work?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yes, top and bottom. Passing the guard, and then even and he has been so open-minded to that, and he's been trying to play a lot more bottom
Mm,
for a long time, and he's got an idea of it. But I mean, it's just hard. Like he did really, really well at the Orlando Open, gi and no gi. In my opinion, I think he did really well.
mm-hmm.
Um, he medaled. He was on the podium in both. I think he was gold and silver, and then we've had definitely. I remember, for instance, there was a situation with one black belt, but there may have been we have people that travel and come through the school a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
man, is it a testament to his game, or is it just how bad the black belt was? You know what I mean? That's why when I hear students say stuff like, "Oh, I tapped this guy" or something like, "Oh, I don't care." Like that guy may be awful,
Mm-hmm.
but the guy was okay. and he just, he totally ripped him apart, and he hangs really well with people that are generally his rank.
Hmm.
So he opened up his game. He started playing more jujitsu from top and bottom, rather than just always out wrestling people. And I mean, blue belt. He goes to Orlando Open. Gi no gi. He's gold and silver. All right, that's solid. Couple that with he's got such a good attitude. He's really positive. He's optimistic. He's a tough
Hmm.
guy. If I tell him to stay in for 10 by 7 minute rounds on an open mat, he'll do it. And so he's really coachable too. So I was like, man, it's time for him to get his purple belt for sure.
Mm.
Yeah, it's almost unfair to keep him at blue belt, like sandbagging him.
Hmm.
That's a little different. But I think that the with the stripes, it's not nearly as big of a deal as a belt, but I'm sort of looking for the same thing. I just
I,
want to see some progression.
I kind of want to take a step back a little bit.
Hmm.
So say you have a white belt student that's been training for a while. At what point are you like, okay, this guy's ready for the blue belt?
Ooh, okay. Interestingly, so I have a few guys right now that are ready for their blue belts.
Mm.
And so this is kind of funny. So like one guy was like, man, you know what? When he comes to class, I'm going to give him his blue belt. I'm going to give him his blue belt tonight.
Mm.
And he didn't come to class.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden he missed like 2 weeks in a row. I didn't hear from him. And he's like a super consistent guy. Now, some people may, I think that we got some really great comments from the first interview that we did relative to belt
we got
promotions.
we got we got overload of comments.
Yeah. Like some people were like, really like, well, hey, I felt like the relative to the promotion in the video that we discussed in what we were discussing in the video the last time, I feel like some people were taking things completely out of context. Like, okay. And so that's why I don't take any of it personal. It's like, yeah, but what if you go up to your instructor and you're asking how to get better? Well, that's not asking for a belt.
Hmm.
That's just asking, like for technical feedback and for coaching. And so, and I think I even referenced this in the video. It's like, I don't have favorites, but if I end up
Hmm.
talking to somebody a little bit more on the side in class, it's not because I'm approaching them.
Yeah.
They're approaching me.
Hmm.
And usually it's like, hey, what do you think about this or this or this from a technical perspective? So that's somebody, in my opinion, and you can certainly, there's a difference between somebody that's seeking information in order to improve and somebody that's kissing ass. There's a difference.
Mm.
So with this one guy that I'm talking about, that's like super consistent, and I said 2 weeks, but it was actually, now that I'm thinking about that, it was more like a month, and I didn't see him, so I was like, okay, he's gonna get his belt. I don't know what his, he may be a guy. In all honesty, I'm just happy that he's doing jujitsu and that he comes. When he first came, I didn't think he was like a tough guy.
Hmm.
He's gotten tougher. Like he's a tough guy.
Yeah,
He
it
he
became.
can. Yeah, he became somebody.
Hmm.
It molded his character. Like just being on the mat, it molded his character. I don't want a situation where as soon as I mean, it's inevitable. He's going to get his blue belt. Well, now I want to just see him be consistent. I mean,
Hmm.
maybe he got sick. You can share that if you want to, but it might take a little bit longer now to get your belt.
Hmm.
And I don't want it to be a situation where I give the guy a blue belt and then he never comes back. At least when these people that are so um, motivated by the belt, which is very sad, but it happens.
Yeah.
But people that are motivated by the belt, a lot of people, they're just like, all right, I get that blue belt, I'm done.
Yeah. Fade away.
Yeah. So
So this touches on like a deeper topic. I really wish more people would talk about, and I think it's a good question for you. And it's, do you think
yeah.
the teacher student relationship? Uh, can you hear me?
Yep.
It's do you think the teacher student relationship is that of a customer and service provider, or do you think that
Wow.
relationship is like something deeper?
Um,
So that's like, I had to think about that one for a while.
so I just had a conversation with my wife this morning about this kind of stuff. All right. So think about this and how much different jujitsu is from other forms of martial arts. So in jujitsu, especially for people that are affiliates, Why are you affiliating with a particular instructor or team or whatever? Why? Is it for technical guidance? Is it for coaching? You hope so. That's what it should be for. And then there's a transaction involved. There's a monetary transaction involved. In order for you to be a part of this association or team or with this particular coach, professor, you have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So when there is a financial transaction that occurs, what is it that you are ultimately wanting to get back? Well, and you know this too, especially with how jiu-jitsu used to be years ago. If you had, only a single black belt and like a small portion of, or excuse me, a state that doesn't have a lot of jiu-jitsu in it, well, you are going to be paying for, part of what you're paying for is the opportunity to be promoted by somebody. What does the professor want from the student? That was a dramatic pause on purpose. Is it money? I mean, like what is the motivation for the relationship behind them? So for me, and if you know a little bit about my history and some of the changes that I've made along the line, is I always wanted somebody that was going to be just as loyal to me as I was willing to be to them. And it was very important. This is how I look at the black belt, like an aspect of the black belt is I wanted someone to be honored to give me my belt, and that they were, is that not only did they assume that I was legitimate, but that I knew that they were as legitimate as well, because maybe they didn't promote, or all of their black belts are totally legit, like that kind of thing. So jiu-jitsu is different in regard to other forms of martial arts, with the the tuition that is involved. If you think about like how many, I don't know anybody that does taekwondo anymore. I don't know anybody, but I do know it, like the one person that I think that does taekwondo. I don't know how frequently this individual does taekwondo, but I think that their gym membership's like $35. I don't know, but jiu-jitsu, if you like a city, especially in a lot of jiu-jitsu, it's expensive. It's really, really expensive.
Can you say that one more time? Because I kind of lost you for a little bit.
If you go to a big city that doesn't have a lot of jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu is very expensive.
Yeah.
I think that, and I'm taking a long time to answer your question, but I do think that you have individuals, and tell me if I answer it, if I'm staying on track. You have individuals, I do think that because they are paying, that there is an expectation that, especially when they see other people and they cross compare and they see other people that, oh, he came in around the same time as I did. Why is he getting promoted and I'm not? I think there is a level of expectation based on the financial piece that comes with getting promoted.
Yeah, personally, my own life, I've had personal experience where, maybe, someone owned an academy or something, and they're like, well, I'm paying this guy, I own this guy. Like, that's how they, from an instructor's perspective, teaching at someone else's academy. Like, I've had like those kind of conversations where, like, because they're paying you, they're like, well, you should do what I say because I'm paying you.
Oh yeah. Say that question again, Alec. I want to know, tell me your question again.
So is the teacher-student relationship, is it like a customer and a service provider, or is it something deeper?
Yeah. So I think that the relationship between a student and a teacher is deeper than a customer and a business owner. I really do. And at the same time, though, there is that business side of it. But I see that a little bit more affecting the guys that have affiliations with this head instructor, not so much between a business owner and a student, or a professor or a coach and a student. That's just my opinion, or at least I feel like that's been more my experience.
I think this question came about from the last video, because a lot of students were, they're like, well, I'm paying him, so I can ask him about when I'm getting my belt. So a lot of people were that's a big
Yeah.
talking point a
Right.
lot of those guys had.
Hmm.
So that's why I kind of wanted to pick your brain on that one.
So there's a difference between an individual that asks their coach for technical feedback. Hey, do you feel like I'm on the right path here? Or when I do this, do you feel like it's effective, especially when we train? Or do I need to stop doing this? Or is there an aspect of my game you think that I'm neglecting? Those questions are totally fine. As soon as you ask about a belt, but again, I'm motivated for different reasons in how I
Mm,
run my business. I'm totally motivated differently. And I mentioned this in the last video, but I've had a couple of students that have definitely left me because I didn't promote them. I'm fine with that. I'm
mhm.
totally fine with that. And the only thing that made it a little bit more dramatic for them is they assumed that we were friends as well. When I mean, I might be friendly with them, but I'm not really. I'm not really. I may get blasted for this. I don't really consider myself friends with many of them. You know what I'm saying? But I'm
Yeah.
definitely friendly. I want to be their teacher,
Hmm.
and I don't want there to be any confusion in that regard.
I think it's important to have those healthy boundaries, because
Yeah,
you're their instructor, but also you're your own person. You have your family, you have your
yeah,
own life outside of jujitsu. So I think it's important to
yeah,
have that boundary.
hmm,
And
for sure. But Alec, I want to tell you something, and you know this. I coached collegiately, and I also taught at a university. And I remember thinking about this one time during a department meeting, and we had somebody come in from it was like student services or something. It was one of the VPs, and then they also came in with somebody from the bursar's office, and they kept referring to the students. It was really confusing. And I remember one of the professors asked a question about that, and they said, "You keep referring to these individuals as customers. We're talking about students."
wait,
And the
you were
vice
saying
president,
students or they were saying customers?
the VP, the administration was saying customers, and
Oh,
then another professor said he was
students.
legitimately confused, and he said, "Do you mean students?" And
Hmm.
he said, "Absolutely." He said, "These are customers. This is a customer service oriented
Mm,
business." And I was like, "Wow, okay, there's a problem with that because education isn't a product." And
hmm.
so I go back to the question that you asked, which is a really good question. And I hope it actually helps some people. Is people are paying for jujitsu instruction.
Hmm.
I don't feel like jujitsu, even though there's a financial transaction involved, I don't think that jujitsu isn't a product. And I really believe too, as cheesy as it may sound, I believe it is a lifestyle. And how what the different things that I've learned from jujitsu relative to my character, in attributes. I'm talking about like personal attributes like humility and confidence and that kind of thing. And so if that were the case, and this is also how I look at it, I know I charge more for jujitsu in Savannah than any other school in this area, but I'll look at it like this: really, you can't really put a price tag on the things that you get from jujitsu. If it's all about like the belt or just learning a move, then I guess
Hmm.
that you can arguably put a price tag on that, but you can't. So I feel like my value, and again, I'm comfortable with comments in the YouTube section, or in the comment section of the YouTube video, and I'm also comfortable with them on Instagram. But if that were the case, I feel like I should be getting paid $1,000 a month per student. And it's not so much what that has to do for me is how open-minded, or how that's less about me than the environment that's created. And I'm not just a part of that. All the other students are a part of that too. I mean, like, I really do feel like what you guys had in Atlanta, based on what I think that I know about where you came from and the guys that I know that you trained with when you were a colored belt, and all of those guys are still training now that come to mind for the most part. No, I mean, I can't even imagine the environment, and probably you are who you are today because of the people that were around you too, not just Chaperay or Lucas or Cabrinha, but also because of your teammates. And I mean, how can you put a price tag on that? That's just me.
Now my bigger question, we'll try to answer this one if we can. I don't know if we can.
Okay.
It's do you think modern jiu-jitsu students are more entitled
Than guys from years ago?
Yes.
Way more entitled. Way more entitled. Way more entitled. 100%.
Oh, here's the comments coming. I feel the comments just
from blue belt to black belt. Because so check this out. So you have like and blue belts are way better than they were 10 and 20 years ago, for sure. But you have guys that are like, you know what, I'm going to be a part of this team. Like a blue belt, I'm going to be a part of this team. I regularly win at IBJJF Opens, and I've medaled at some majors. I have an opportunity, you know, I'm going to be a world champion at some point. And it's almost as if, hey, I'm thinking about coming here and training. Like I even tell my students when they visit another city, or excuse me, not when they visit, if they're moving to another city, I will tell, like if they say, hey, is there anywhere you want me to train? And I'm like, you got it. You train where you feel most comfortable. I'm not going to be there. You're going to be there. If it's somebody that I like a lot and that I know is a reputable instructor, I'll say I would go here if I were you, but basically draw a radius around your home and office and figure out as far as you're willing to go, and then visit every school in between, and you figure that out. Okay. I have people that this doesn't happen too often that'll come to me and they're like, hey, I'm letting you know I'm checking out schools in the area and I'm gonna give you a shot for a couple of days. Like everything is about how you say it and intentions too. It's like, hey, I'm just gonna be here for a couple of days. I'm gonna try it out. Like I always feel like you don't even need to say that. Just come for a couple of classes and then go and check out other schools. Cause you know this too, Alec. If you would have said that 10 and 20 years ago, you would have just got your butt kicked in class. You would have just got your butt kicked for going there and even training.
I always make sure that hey, I'm coming in town, just let you guys know I'm not going to drop in. I just want to make sure it's cool.
Right. But you do that because of your experience from when you first started.
Yeah. I want to introduce myself. I don't want to, if maybe they're like, hey, we don't want you here. Okay, that's fine. I completely understand.
Right.
But it's not like, hey, can I train for free? I'll teach a few classes. I'm not doing that.
Right. And you have blue belts that will do that. They're like, hey, I'm thinking about joining you guys, but I'm also going to check out other place down the street. And I have had this happen once. It's like, it really comes down to style of jiu-jitsu. And I'm sitting here thinking, here's this, I mean, he might be good. This blue belt's coming in here and telling me about his style of jiu-jitsu and he's looking for an instructor that fits his style. Like, I mean, that goes without saying, maybe, but what do you know?
Are they also asking for like, hey, I'll teach a few classes and I don't have to pay, right? Are they doing something like that too?
I've had that happen before. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember the exact scenario, but I do. Oh yeah, like hey, and it wasn't even like hey, I got a money issue. I just lost my job. It wasn't even like that. I mean, it was like, actually, yeah, okay. So this particular guy, he had a very good job, and I thought he had really, really good jujitsu. So as I say this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Not who, but you'll know what I'm talking about. He always came in late. He always left early. Always came in late. Yeah. Always left early.
Hey, we always notice that instructors, man, this guy's coming in late all the time.
Yeah.
We were going to notice that immediately.
And he was always like, hey, thanks for the good training today, man. Got a tough group of guys. Really love them pushing me and helping me improve. I'm like, good gosh, this guy's got like a really, like a decent paying job. Now, finally, I said something to him one day. I said, you can't come back until you pay. And this is when I was running it. You've been to my gym before. This was when I was running it years ago before you came as a club, at a YMCA. And he was like, well, I just thought it was a club. And I was like, no. And he was like, yeah, but I'm helping your guys out too. And I was like, no, you're not helping us out at all. You still got to pay. Like I have responsibilities to people here as well. So, I was going to actually get a little bit more specific about it, but I remember when he asked me how much I owed him, and I told him, and he was like, monthly? And I was like, no, just for the last 3 months.
Oh, it's like that
He
lump
never
sum.
came back.
That lump sum hit him.
Yeah.
I remember my old gym, I used to train with a guy, Bull Shaw.
Yeah.
And dude, I remember I had to like
force.
I was like, Bull, I need to pay you. I'm trying to pay you, Bull. Like, here's the check. Here you go, Bull. He's like, yeah, don't worry. Next time. Like, of course the gym went out of business. But like, I remember like, I'm a teenager. Hey, Bull, I got the money for you. Take it. He's like, oh, give it to me next time. I'm like, no, you need it now.
So, you know, but going back to what I said about, you know, a value, and I was totally joking, kind of, when I said the thing about, you know, for what a student is able to get, if we're looking at jujitsu, I still don't think that jujitsu is a product, though there's a financial transaction involved. In that case, based on what my gym is providing and what I'm providing as an instructor, I should be getting paid way more. You know, I'm not just giving people jujitsu, I'm giving them health, I'm giving them a community, I'm giving them all kinds of stuff. But that's where it's hard, because I'm certainly I certainly realize, like, I just am so happy when, especially my students that are consistent and that have stuck it out and have been with me a really long time. I don't I have a hard time sometimes, like especially if I know their financial situation too, and they got to get a patch for their gi, or they want to get a t-shirt or something like that. I'm like, I just take it. It's really tough when you see somebody that comes every day, because it motivates and inspires me too. But I think everybody ought to pay.
I think so I do believe modern jiu-jitsu students are more entitled. And I think that's just because the people that are attracted to jiu-jitsu now are different than, you know, 10, 20 years ago. Because like, you know, 10, 20 years ago, like, you were actively seeking out jiu-jitsu, and it wasn't popular. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't cool. It was like, I remember not telling people I did jiu-jitsu. I would just tell them, hey, I do wrestling or judo or something. Just so I didn't have to explain what
it's kind
jiu-jitsu
of like
was.
judo.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And then, you know, they're like, oh, I do karate. My little cousin does. She's a black belt in karate. Like, that happened to me when I was a blue belt. Like, so I remember, like, go ahead, Sergi.
You're like, that's not even the same thing. It's like when somebody says, they were like, oh yeah, you do karate. And it's like, no, I don't do karate. And it's like, oh yeah, my cousin does karate, or my little niece does karate. And it's like, that's, I mean, like, martial arts might be the same fruit, but that's apples and oranges. It's the same thing. It's not even close.
But even in karate, like, when it originally came to America, it was like serious. You know, the guys are serious. They're fighting. You know,
that is true.
It wasn't until, you know, decades later where it became more of a joke almost.
Absolutely. So are we going to save this for another video?
Yeah,
that one right there.
It's good to touch on it.
Yeah, like, where's jiu-jitsu going? Is it going to end up there? I mean, you and I started, like, you know, 20 years ago. The other thing, what you were saying about jiu-jitsu was, it was so intimidating back then. And this whole thing with, like, visiting schools, it's really cool, and people are very open to it now. I don't know of any school that I probably wouldn't be welcome in. But no, not 20 years ago. I mean, I still went and trained at places, but I felt very unwelcome in a lot of places that I went.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't name names. Some of them are still around.
Yeah, there's certain places where I was like, I'm definitely not going there.
Right. For sure.
One more question, Sergi. This is one I got a previous comment. I think we kind of touched on it, but it's good to, you know, go off some of the comments. I think we did touch on it, but I'll just to do it one more time.
Sure.
One of the guys said, how do you ask if you're at the proficiency level you should be at for your rank without making it sound like you're asking how close you are to being promoted?
Yeah, I don't, you can't answer that question, because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I think they should know.
This is, but to have a conversation specific to technical progression only and minus rank is, I feel like I've hit a plateau. I don't feel like my jiu-jitsu's been that great now, not just for a couple of weeks, but for a few months. I might need a little pep talk. And some coaches are way better at that than others, for sure. And that is the best way to go about asking that question. But I always like to stay away from rank questions. I didn't just do that when I was a student. I try to do that even now.
Mm.
And I don't have, I've noticed too a pattern in jujitsu where some instructors, and I'm not knocking it. I don't see anything wrong with it. At the end of the day, I think one of the things that makes jujitsu cool is the how unstructured it can be. Like every gym or every team or whatever, they do their own thing. But at the end of the day, we're all still doing jujitsu. I like to see students not necessarily know when it's coming, for it to be a big surprise, for it to be like icing on a cake, like, man, maybe when they least expected it. But I know there's a pattern in jiu-jitsu where guys know pretty much at the summer celebration and the Christmas celebration, that's when we're going to be doing promotions. And I get it. Sometimes I do that, but that's really not ever my intention of doing it. It just happens to fall on some of those days. But like you said, you saw last week I promoted a guy to purple belt and blue belt. It was just time for both of them.
I wish more students would just have more faith in their instructor.
I
So
know.
when the instructor's like, hey, when the instructor says you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah.
Obviously,
and just let it go. Just let the promotion thing happen on its own, because it will happen if you stick around and you show up and you try. It really will happen. And I know that a long time ago it was like you never met a bad purple belt, and then you never met a bad brown belt, and then you never met a like a black belt. That guy was like a magician. And this may go into where we stopped short of another conversation a second ago, and jiu-jitsu's definitely changed. But like I have a guy that it's been a while that I promoted, and he's not doing jiu-jitsu for some health reasons. But man, he was super consistent. He tried really, really hard. He's never going to compete. If I could find somebody that looked just like him, that was built just like him with the same level of athleticism, the same age, the same weight, he would totally hold his own in that category. And so in that case, I feel like it was totally appropriate. Was his jiu-jitsu good? No. But you put me in certain situations and make me play a game that I'm not familiar with, as dynamic as jiu-jitsu is now, and I'm not necessarily good. I remember when I host a lot of guys to teach at my school, and I remember a really long time ago I had a very well-known black belt come in, and he started by saying, "You guys can ask me anything you want. I know everything." And I remember like, man,
somebody said that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
and I remember
Jesus.
thinking, I can't wait until I'm that good one day to where I can say that too. And now I realize,
Christ.
Man, there's certain things like I know nothing about. I'm a blue belt in leg locks, Alec.
That's pretty good.
No, I think I'm like a 3-stripe white belt in leg locks, maybe.
Sergi, they can't grab your legs, man. I'm sorry.
They're too short. My feet are too small and my legs are too short
and thick. You're like, what?
That's what we have to. Good. This needs to go viral so people will believe that and they'll leave my feet alone.
It's like, even to get to like a Ashigarami, like, dude, it's already slipped out by the time you thought you had that thing. That saved me too, man. That's half of my leg lock defense. Like, whoop. Pull that leg through.
The thing was, like, I remember you and I having a conversation about leg lock defenses one time, and you were like, "Yeah, I just don't let them get to my feet." And I was thinking, like, okay, I like that.
I mean, if you want to you can shut it down if you really, really want to shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't open yourself up or leave yourself in those positions usually.
Yeah, for sure. So did we cover white belt to blue belt?
I think we did.
Yeah.
All right,
so
Sergi,
I would say,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was good. A good definition would be a white belt to blue belt is they have an idea of all of the positions and basic submissions. And for me, what I like to see is some consistency and that they have toughened up a little bit. Usually it's that way. Humility is part of it too. That would be maybe for the big wrestlers or the athletic guys that come in, but and the bodybuilders. But it's usually gaining some confidence and toughening up a little bit. That's what I look to see. Anywhere for it's like on average like a year, I think it takes. But I got some guys that are like a year and a half still at white belt.
And then blue to purple.
Blue to purple. See, I feel like that is, you know, I feel like the purple belt is still like a big deal, and I don't want any of my purple belts being bad. So they got to be well-rounded, but then they got to have a really specific game that they can fall back on, that they can always catch people or progress to, make the game sort of progress to, that they can have a little more control, positional control, whatever. And go ahead.
I feel like purple belt, like you can be like more specialized. So maybe okay, your guard's like guard passing, guard. Okay, yeah. It's like getting sharp. You know, it's getting good.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like they have to have. It certainly can't be like a. They can be somebody that is on their way to purple belt, or even a purple belt that has a really specialized game from the top position, but they have to have a working knowledge that they can demonstrate from their back. It's easy to be good from the top.
Yeah, I mean, any wrestler, any tough guy with balance, like you're gonna be tough on top.
Yeah. So I like to see something a little bit more specialized from purple belts, and then obviously too. And I don't have that many purple belts in my school. I think I might have like, I don't know, 8 to 10.
That's a lot.
And and they're to me they're really committed guys. I would say that about all of them. Loyal, committed, consistent, committed to jiu-jitsu is what I mean. And they are also people. So my expectation changes for those guys too. I always say like good blue belts are like sophomores in high school. They're like wise fools. They think that they know everything, but they don't know a damn thing. That's how I look at like a 3 and 4 stripe blue belt. That's like pretty good. So like for a purple belt, I don't want to see purple belts acting that way, because you know, when you get like a bunch of white belts in the school and you have like this idiot purple belt at the top of the line, and then they're looking at him and they're like, okay, that's how it's okay to act that way, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, confidence is huge, but again, like humility, self-control, discipline, being willing to help out those guys too, you know, that are new, introducing yourself, making people feel welcome that are new. Those are things that I look for with somebody that I'm thinking about promoting the purple belt as well.
I'll save the other belts for later because it gets a little messy. It gets a little messy in brown and black. We'll say that for another one.
Yes, for sure.
All right, Sergi. Anything for me? Any questions for me real fast?
When you were at, how about when you were at blue, on your way from blue belt to purple belt? What was the feeling for you when you emotionally? How long were you a blue belt?
I don't think I was a blue belt for very long. But also my blue belt, it was kind of the same time Cobrinha came to Atlanta. So it was like a very, I think a big change for me going from like, you know, training a few times a week to like, okay, now I need to start doing twice a day. I was like, that was like a big jump for me. I was going, you know, maybe 2-3 times a week to like, I need to go 3 or 4 times a week, twice a day. So I was just like, big change.
Was that a blue belt or purple belt?
Blue belt.
Did you feel like that was an expectation that you put on yourself?
No, I did not put that expectation on myself. It was kind of like, okay, if you want to be good, this is what you got to do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was like, oh, Jesus. Okay. I need to do this now. You know, because I was training with Cobrinha, you know, all the time. So it's like, man, if I want to hang, I got to train twice a day. So like, that was a big changed for me. And also, I think I was in high school. It's like there's also a transition from high school to college, so I got more free time. And then blue belt, I was competing a lot. I also made the switch from like the jump from just like regional tournaments, you know, your Nagas and stuff like that, to like, okay, I'm doing pans, I'm doing this tournament now.
Right.
So it was rough period. You know, I was just trying to hang, man. That was it. Just trying to survive, to be honest.
Did it feel like a big deal for you to get your purple belt?
I mean, I knew there was some, my instructor needed help teaching classes too. So one facet of it was like, okay, we need like a higher belt to teach.
Sure.
I probably could have stayed a blue belt a little bit longer.
Okay.
But I thought it was a pretty big deal. I was happy to be a purple belt, but then also like, I didn't have that much success at blue belt. So purple belt was like, man, okay, I'm going to a bigger pond, bigger lake, bigger ocean. So I like purple belt was just like, blue belt was like, I opened my eyes to like, man, I need to start training more and harder.
Yeah.
And purple belt was like, Jesus, everybody's really good. So it's like, just trying to survive pretty much.
I just remember thinking like, it's pretty easy to get a blue belt. It's almost like anybody can do that if you just hang out and show up. But purple belt, I think I got my purple belt in 2004 or 5. So I just remember like thinking like there's not a lot of purple belts, so it's kind of a big deal. But I remember everybody wanting to come after me after that, and it wasn't as easy to visit schools because I did a lot of traveling.
That's why I said, like, even now, like, I'll introduce myself and like, hey, you know, just let you guys know, don't try to jump me. Right. When you go to, well, it happens when you go to good schools, like, you're gonna send everybody. Send boom, boom, boom. Up, see the best guy for last. I mean, we used to do that in Atlanta too. If the guy was cocky, they're like, okay, man. Okay, go with Ian. You hear that? You hear, oh no, go Ian. You're like, oh God.
Yeah. And then who do you go to after that? I mean, like everybody up there was good.
It'll be like, go with Jamonta, go with Ian, go with Alec, man. And then like, okay, now go with Cabria.
That's a tough room.
Yeah, it's rough, man.
Damn. I'm looking forward to the conversation about brown and black belts.
That's a rough one, man, because I know so many people that had quit a brown belt.
I'm a real person, and I do try to always maintain a level of respect and having these kind of conversations for sure. But I'm gonna be very real.
Save it, Sergi. Save it.
Yeah, I'll stop.
All right, Sergi, I think we're good, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you always.
If you guys are ever in Savannah, go train with Sergi.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.